Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today we're going to continue with Sarah Bombranick's Simple Abundance, 365 Days to a Balanced and Joyful Life. March 29th, comfort clothes and what they mean. Most women feel passionately about their comfort clothes. I have a beloved pair of paisley cotton knit pajamas that I would wear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if I could only figure out how to get away with it. During the day, they wait patiently on a hook in my bedroom closet. At night, they whisper my name. Because I wear these pajamas so religiously, I wash them often, which is why they have become as soft as a baby's cheek. Alas, I have searched in vain to find another pair so that I may have more variety in my at-home wear, but either the style or the fabric doesn't quite match the perfection of my paisley, so the holy quest continues. I used to own a special sweater that was an incredible silk cotton blend. I wore it and washed it so often that it began to unravel at the sides. I wore it anyway. I called it my lucky literary sweater because the days I wore it were incredibly productive. This synchronicity occurred because I felt such exquisite pleasure and experienced such divine comfort all day long that I was free to be a creative conduit. Finally, when the book I was writing was completed, my daughter's father beseeched me to discard the ratty old thing. Since I was then known to strangers in our town as simply the mayor's wife, I reluctantly agreed. One of our cats made a nest on my lost love in the basement. Her look of unadulterated bliss at having inherited such a treasure somewhat alleviates the loss. Somewhat, but not quite. I'm convinced that we are our own best selves in comfort clothes. Somehow, though the alchemy of fiber and fit, through the alchemy of fiber and fit, we are once again restored to paradise, this time not naked before the great Creator, but reveling in the clothes she intended for us to wear. Unfortunately, comfort clothes exist for most of us only as a footnote to our lives, not center stage, as they would if a sensible woman were in charge of the earthly scheme of things. Perhaps we feel good for 8 hours out of every 24, but that is not nearly good enough. The rest of the time, we're squeezed into uncomfortable things that pull, pinch, tug, choke, itch, hike up or down, and make the days of our lives miserable. We wear these creations of torture, we tell ourselves, in order to be agreeable to the rest of the world. But why shouldn't we find a way of making the world agreeable to us instead? This week, play detective. Examine closely the items in your wardrobe you reach for when in need of comfort. Look for clues to help you bring more comfort into your life. What fabrics feel good against your skin? Make a note of it on your phone or the small spiral notebook you're carrying in your purse. What size are you really comfortable in? Be honest, not vain. It has been my experience that comfort clothes are usually our true size or even a tad loose. You don't squeeze into comfort, you slip into something that's more comfortable. What collar style suits you? Yes, these details make all the difference. Expand the comfort concept of how you care for your wardrobe. In the future, look for clothes that are easy to maintain. No labels that say dry clean only. Now, see if you can't find clothing that matches your personal preferences and be willing to wait until you do. Consider budgeting and saving for quality comfort clothing you can wear all day long and love for years. The simple abundance path encourages us to be patient until we find what's perfect for us, rather than continue to waste our money, energy, and emotion settling for second best or second rate. One of the things that I stopped doing years ago was wearing heels, because heels for me are not comfortable at all. They make my feet hurt, they make my knees hurt, and I really just didn't enjoy wearing them. So I got rid of all of them. I no longer have any heels. I will only wear flats. March 30th, developing a sense of style. Celebrating your authentic style through the clothes you wear is an art form. But like any of the arts, a sense of style is one that needs to be nurtured after it is initially divined and devised. Style begins when you seek and discover your strengths, then bank on them for all they're worth. Personal style flourishes when you realize that you really don't need as much clothing, accessories, jewelry, or makeup as you once thought you did because you've got attitude. Remind yourself today that you are an artist. In searching for your authenticity, you will uncover your own signature look. It may be the great way you wear hats, highlight stunning eyes with smoky gray kohl, showcase a chic shortcut with fabulous earrings, show off gorgeous slender legs with sheer stockings and elegant pumps, or have enough pluck to wear a white cotton t-shirt with a tailored wool jacket. This year, be willing to experiment with a sense of adventure to find out what works for you and what doesn't. Then stick with what works, no matter what everybody else is wearing. March 31st. Do try this at home. First aid. When my daughter was completing 8th grade and her class was planning a camping trip, since I'd begun writing during the blur of her grammar school years, I'd never been a trip chaperone, so when she asked me, of course, I agreed. However, my last camping trip had been many years before when I was a Girl Scout, so you would be correct in assessing my camping skills as zilch. Nonetheless, I must have felt Mrs. Miniver's spirit unconsciously because I was determined to be prepared for a camping crisis should one occur. That meant a trip to our local REI, the outdoor and camping purveyors, where I filled up a shopping cart with first aid and camping gear. Every time I put another must-have into the cart, Kate would take it out and say, "We won't be needing this." I was almost done when I added an emergency tick removal kit. Since the kids would all be outfitted in long johns and rain gear, Kate rolled her eyes and sighed when she saw the box. Nobody else's mom brought this stuff when they were chaperones. Why was I embarrassing her? If you've ever had a heated exchange with a 13-year-old, you know it's not pleasant to linger. I seem to recall the conversation ending with an exasperated warning from Kate. "Okay, bring it, but don't let anyone see it." The camping trip to watch the Asatag ponies in Maryland was terrific fun. There were no medical emergencies, thank heavens, except for one of the boys who got bitten by a tick. Fortunately, some resourceful parent had included a tick removal kit with their first aid supplies, and so all's well that ends well. Emergency medical information. This month, we'll continue mirroring Mrs. Miniver's calm practicality as we start to get our first aid kit and health records in order. When an emergency happens, whether it's a heart attack or a hurricane, it's critical that medical service providers have access to health information for anyone who needs assistance. The Mayo Clinic recommends, while you can't predict when an emergency may happen, you can be prepared. So let's start. As you did with your vital papers last month, we'll begin compiling a family health records file. Gather them all together to be kept in one box while you prepare the individual files, including a digital scan, so you'll have a thumb drive as well as a printed version. Again, this is a project that can be spread out in 2-hour blocks over a couple of weekends. It took me about 4 hours to do this by myself over 2 weekends. 2 hours is enough for one session. However, even just starting with 1 hour is great. The point is to start. For every member of your family, you'll create a file. You'll need name, age, address, blood type, any medical conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, epilepsy, or allergies. Our smartphones are also equipped to keep all our medical information on the medical ID available on the home screen. When we update the setting called Show When Locked On, emergency medical personnel have access to all our vital information. Do this for your mother, aunt, or grandparent for the gift of a lifetime. Don't forget to set up the in case of emergency data. If an emergency was activated, check your phone system on the specifics. A phone call is made to everyone on the list to notify them that first responders have been called. You'll also need a list of each person's prescriptions. Tell your family's physicians that you're preparing an emergency first aid kit and would like to have an extra month's worth of medicine issued separately. If you have immunization records, include that with your digital scan as well as your printout. Who can remember the last time anyone had a tetanus shot? Have any of you traveled recently outside of the United States? Make note of that. Each person should have a medical consent form and any other documentation or special products to deal with individual health concerns, and make sure you have a signed medical proxy authorization. If you have any x-rays from recent medical conditions or as part of your mammogram records, bring them in a waterproof portfolio or file. As you did last month with your vital papers, everyone in your family should have their own plastic envelope file, which will go into a duffel bag carrying your first aid and health supplies. I'd pick out a red duffel bag because you will recognize it immediately, and if you can get out one with wheels, you'll be thankful. First aid kits. In outfitting your first aid kit, it's much easier to start with pre-made, top-notch first aid kits, and I'd recommend an OSHA-approved workplace kit that can treat up to 50 people, which is available on Amazon. If you have a baby in your family, it's good to have a first aid kit for small children too. We all use over-the-counter health aids such as pain reliever, bug spray. There are many natural insect repellents now, anti-itch creams for bites, sunscreen, blister remedies, blood clotting agents, and wound covers. There's also cough medicine, cold relief, athlete's foot preparation, tampons, sanitary napkins, hand sanitizing gel, and individual packages of tissues. If you have inspected your first aid kit, you'll know what else you need to fill in. Don't forget rubber gloves, health masks, a splint, a sling, and a tourniquet. All of these are available online. Finally, the Mayo Clinic reminds us, probably the only mistake a traveler can make with their first aid kit is not having one. There are many commercially available kits to be purchased. A bit of pre-planning can go a long way towards dealing with an unexpected injury or illness on an adventure or during an emergency. Should you need to borrow supplies from the first aid kit, make a note and put it on the kit to flag your memory and replace it on your next trip to the pharmacy. And don't forget the tick removal kit. So I'm going to do April's tomorrow, but it's really, really important that you have these items in place in case of emergency, particularly all of the documentation, because if something happens, it can be really, really difficult for your family, particularly during the grieving process, to try and have to figure all of this stuff out. I just lost my stepdad a week ago, and his family is struggling right now trying to go through this whole process because his death was unexpected. I'm sorry. It was unexpected. And no one knows what documentation he had, his bank account information, nothing. And so not only are they struggling with the grieving process, but they're also dealing with having to figure all this stuff out on top of it. So please, I implore you, do something really good for yourself and for your family. You can go on LegalZoom and pay less than $100 to have a will done, have a trust done, and then let people know. Let people know that you have it. Let people know where it's located so that if anything happens, that they don't have to try and figure this stuff out. Because it's hard enough having to deal with the grief than having to deal with all the other stuff on top of it. So until tomorrow, I hope you have an amazing and blessed day.